Now, one of government's main participants in the 16-day campaign of activism against violence against women and children is the Commission for Gender Equity. Among their upcoming campaigns is a 365-day campaign of activism against violence on women and children, which is obviously intended to run through the year. To discuss this, we are now joined by Deputy Chairperson of the Commission, Thoko Mpumlwana. Ma'am, good morning to you. Welcome.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us this morning. So, 365 days of action, how is it going to differ from the 16-day campaign?
Well, the first thing that was discovered was that 16 days is too short. Frankly, the problem is bigger than 16 days. We have a society where violence has become part of life, where women at home, as they walk the streets, as they are at work, sometimes are violated, and children. We've got cases where lesbians are killed. So we have a society that has to step back and say, how can we turn around and live in a peaceful society, a society that cares, where even the vulnerable, even the drunken women are taken care of instead of being taken advantage of. So the feeling was that 16 days is just a hype. It has no impact whatsoever.
It has no impact whatsoever, the 16-day campaign. 16
days just makes people know that there is a problem, and then they go back to their old ways. So the feeling was that let's have a program, and this was discussed and agreed upon at Kopanong 2007, and there was a declaration that said, let us all work together as civil society, as government, as media, to really educate the nation about the scourge of violence, and all of us playing our role in making sure that this scourge is eradicated in our society.
So what's going to be different, apart from the longer period? What is going to characterize this new effort?
Our role as the CGE, as the Commission for Gender Equality, is to monitor, to research. We have just released a report, which I have before me, that looks at whether the impact has been there. And we have found that there isn't much impact on the plan that had been put in place by government, by civil society organizations. And the real problem was lack of coordination. They are not coordinating well, they're not working together. So
everybody does their own thing.
Everybody in silos. This department will do this, and there aren't enough resources. Civil society organizations, they've got the will, but they don't have the money. And people on the ground are still feeling the scourge. The justice system has worked well. They have put
does that
legislation.
Mean your conviction rate, you're satisfied with the conviction rate of
offenders? The conviction rate is good, but you still find cases where in one magistrate's court, the case disappears, the files disappear, but in others, things go very well, which is a sense that a little more and much more still has to be done to make sure that the system works well for the victims.
One of the challenges was that, people working and organizations working in silos, but you also mentioned the thing about resourcing. How are you going to address that? What is to be done?
What has to be done is that we believe there is enough money in this country to go around. We are now going to make sure as CG we push, working with the Ministry of Women, Children and Persons with Disabilities, and the new council that is going to come into being, that's going to be launched by the Deputy President towards the end of this month, actually beginning of December, to make sure that resources are put into this structure of the Gender-Based Violence Council, so that actual implementation of the plan is seen to be working, and resources are put so that right there up to the ward level, the system works for the people of South Africa.
But what messaging needs to be communicated? I mean, how is it going to change the behavior? We've had the 16-day campaign, if not for 10 years now, and yet it seems the patterns are not changing sufficiently to say this campaign is working. So where does the problem lie? People have been running campaigns. Yes. Is it messaging? What kind of different messaging is going to be put in place?
It is messaging, Rio, also. There are still people who believe that to resolve problems, you have to fight, you have to be violent. To assert your authority, you have to be violent. There are people who still believe that women are inferior, And because women are inferior, they can dominate them, they can just force themselves on them sexually. It is a patriarchal society that we live in. So we need a lot of messaging to make sure that people change the way they think, the way they behave. And a research done by Gender Leaks also shows that out there in the far-flung areas of our country, people don't even know that these campaigns exist.
Okay.
So we need to do more of education, working with the media as well, and religious leaders to send positive messages.
So it must be integrated.
Yes.
With this 16-day campaign as it starts, does it now flow into 365, or is 365 going to be launched completely differently?
365, these 16 days just hypes up the 365 that should continue as a campaign throughout every day of South Africa.
All right. Thank you very much. Thoko Mpumlwana is Deputy Chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality, talking about rolling out 365 days as a campaign to stop violence against women and children. You may want to comment